The smart speaker heard something it wasn't supposed to. My mother-in-law tried to destroy my marriage, but she forgot one small detail. It all began on a rainy October evening 6 months ago. I was preparing dinner when David burst into the house, his hair wet and his eyes filled with panic. "Julia, we need to talk," he said, shaking raindrops off his jacket, avoiding my gaze. I turned off the stove and faced my husband. After 7 years together, I'd learned to read his mood in the smallest details. He was upset but trying to hide it. "What's wrong?" I asked, wiping my hands on a towel. "Mom's in the hospital. She had a stroke." The world stopped for a second. Despite the strained relationship I had with, I never wished her harm. "David, honey," I hugged him. "How is she? What do the doctors say?" "Stable, but—" He pulled back and looked into my eyes. "She can't live alone anymore. The doctors say she needs constant care, at least for the first 6 months." My heart sank. I knew where this was going. "David." "Julia, she's my mother." His voice trembled with emotion. "I can't send her to a nursing home. It would kill her faster than any illness." I looked at his face, tired, tormented by worry. David adored his mother despite all her quirks, and I loved David more than life itself. "Okay," I said quietly. "She can move in with us." He hugged me so tightly, I could barely breathe. Thank you, Julia. It's temporary, I promise, as soon as she gets better." "It'll be okay," I whispered into his shoulder, though inside, a sense of dread coiled tight. Had always been an enigma to me. A refined 65-year-old woman, a former manager at a major company, she looked like the perfect mother-in-law from a glossy magazine. Always impeccably dressed, with flawless hair and the manners of a true lady. But beneath that facade was something else, something cold. From the start of my relationship with David, she treated me with barely veiled disdain. She never said anything outright, but every encounter was a minefield. "Julia, dear, that hairstyle doesn't suit you at all." Of course, not every girl knows how to cook like in the old days. "David, isn't it time to think about children? Julia's already 30. Each comment was a jab with a fine needle. David didn't notice or chose not to. "Mom's just worried about us," he'd say. And now, this woman was going to live in our home. For the first week, I almost believed I'd misjudged. She looked genuinely ill, pale, weak, with trembling hands. She thanked me for every glass of water, every pill I brought her. "Julia, dear," she said in a shaky voice, "I'm so grateful to you. I know my illness has disrupted your plans." "Don't be silly. Family is what matters most." "You're such a kind girl," she weakly squeezed my hand. "David's lucky to have you." David was beaming, seeing us bond. He worked late, often traveled for business, leaving and me alone for long stretches. I helped her with her medications, cooked the special diet prescribed by the doctors. We even watched old movies together in the evenings. "You know, Julia," she said one night while we watched Casablanca, "I was wrong about you. You're a real woman. David chose well." I nearly cried with relief. Maybe we'd finally found common ground. But by the second week, something shifted. It started with small things. My favorite scarf vanished from the closet. The expensive earrings David gave me for our anniversary disappeared from my vanity. "Have you seen my earrings? The diamond teardrop ones." "What earrings, dear?" She raised her eyebrows in surprise. "You know I'm bedridden. How could I take anything?" It made sense. Maybe I'd misplaced them. Then came the accidents. Accidentally spilled coffee on my work documents, a critical contract I'd spent a month preparing. "Oh, Julia," she exclaimed, staring at the brown stains on the papers. "Forgive this foolish old woman. My hands just don't work right since the stroke." I spent the weekend recreating the documents. The next week, she accidentally started the washing machine while I was loading delicate clothes. My favorite silk dress turned into a rag. "Oh, I thought you'd already set the cycle," threw up her hands. "These modern machines are so confusing for old folks." "It's fine," I lied, hiding the ruined dress, "as long as you're okay." but suspicion was growing. Too many accidents for one sick woman. The turning point came in early December. David was on a business trip in Chicago, leaving and me alone. I was cooking dinner when the doorbell rang. It was our neighbor, Mrs. Clark, an elderly woman with a worried expression. "Julia, dear, I'm sorry to bother you," she said, nervously twisting the hem of her coat. "But I have to tell you, I saw your mother-in-law in the garden this afternoon." "In the garden?" I didn't understand. "But can't walk without help." "Exactly," Mrs. Clark lowered her voice. "She was walking just fine, even running after your cat, Muffin, and laughing." Muffin was the ginger stray who sometimes wandered into our yard. Always claimed she was allergic and afraid of animals. "Maybe you were mistaken." I tried to find a logical explanation. "Julia, I've lived 70 years. I know what I saw." Mrs. Clark put a hand on my shoulder. "Be careful, dear. Something's not right." I couldn't sit still all evening. As I served dinner in bed, I studied her face, her movements. "How are you feeling today?" I asked. "Awful, dear," she gave a weak smile. "My legs just won't cooperate. I can barely make it to the bathroom." She seemed completely sincere. Could Mrs. Clark have been mistaken? But the doubts wouldn't let go. The next day, I decided to test her. I told I was going to the store, but instead, I parked around the corner and walked back to the house. What I saw through the kitchen window stopped my heart. Was standing at the stove, cooking herself an omelet. She moved confidently, with no trace of weakness. She was even humming a tune, looking perfectly healthy and content. When she saw my car in the driveway, she quickly turned off the stove, grabbed her cane, and hurried to her room. When I walked into the house 5 minutes later, she was lying in bed with a book. "How are you?" I asked, struggling to keep my voice calm. "Tired, dear. Just reading to distract myself from the pain." I checked the kitchen. No trace of cooking. The plate and pan were meticulously washed and put away. That night I couldn't sleep. A horrifying picture was forming, was faking her illness. But why? I got my answer the following week. David returned from his trip in high spirits, bringing gifts, French perfume for me, white roses for his mom. "How's my mom doing?" he asked, gently kissing his forehead. "Has Julia been taking good care of you?" "Oh, she's an angel," gave me a warm smile. "I don't know what I'd do without Julia." But when David left the room, her expression changed instantly. The warmth vanished, her eyes turned cold as ice. "Smart girl," she said quietly. "I see you figured it out." "Figured what out?" I feigned confusion. "That I'm perfectly healthy," sat up in bed and tossed the blanket aside, "and that you can't do anything about it." "Why?" My mouth went dry. "Why are you doing this?" "Isn't it obvious?" She stood up, showing no signs of weakness. "I'm taking my son back." "David isn't a thing you can take back." "Oh, but he's mine." Her voice was steel. "I gave birth to him, raised him, nurtured him. For 35 years he was mine alone. Then you came along." She walked to the window, checking to make sure David was in the garage. "Before you, he called me every day, visited every weekend. We traveled together, went to the theater. And now," she turned to me, her eyes blazing with hatred, "now he only remembers me on holidays." "That's natural. He's a grown man with his own family." "Family," she laughed, but it was a cold laugh. "You haven't given him children in 5 years of marriage. What kind of family are you?" Her words hit hard. David and I had been trying for a baby for 3 years. The doctors found no issues, just told us to keep trying. It was a sore spot. "David loves me," I said, trying not to show how much her words hurt. "Loves," smirked mockingly. "Dear, he loves me, you're just a passing fancy." "That's not true." "Then why did he believe me when I said I couldn't walk? Why didn't he doubt me for a second?" She returned to the bed and sat on the edge. "Because his mother's word is gospel to him." There was a terrifying truth in her logic. David never questioned his mother's words. "What do you want?" I asked. "For you to leave, voluntarily, while I'm still being nice," adjusted her pillows. "David will survive a divorce. I'll help him find a proper wife. Young, obedient, someone who knows her place. And if I don't leave? Then I'll make you leave, her voice held no doubt. And trust me, dear, you'll regret not leaving quietly. David's footsteps sounded in the hallway. Instantly lay back, pulled the blanket over herself, and put on a suffering expression. Julia, David poked his head into the room. Mom wants tea, could you make some? Of course, I looked at. She gave me a weak, grateful smile. But her eyes danced with mocking glee. The next weeks turned into a nightmare. Launched a psychological war, and I was a novice against a master. It started with undermining me in small ways. When David asked what was for dinner, she sighed. I don't know, dear. Julia made something odd. I couldn't eat it. My stomach couldn't handle it. Julia, maybe cook something simpler for Mom, David asked. Or, son, remember how we used to love watching old movies? It's a shame Julia prefers those modern action flicks. I didn't prefer action movies, but slowly, David started seeing me as someone with different interests, different views. Then came her concern for my health. Julia, dear, you've lost so much weight, she said at dinner when David was home. And you're so pale, maybe you should see a doctor. She's right, David chimed in. You do look tired. Of course I looked tired. I was working full-time and then coming home to care for a fraud who was plotting to ruin my life. But the worst began in January. Started staging incidents. The first happened while I was at work. That evening, David met me with a worried face. Julia, Mom fell in the bathroom today. Good thing she reached the emergency button. We'd installed an emergency call system for a red button in every room. Is she hurt badly? A bruise on her hip. She says she slipped trying to reach a towel. He hugged me. Maybe we should install handrails in the bathroom. We spent the weekend installing handrails, non-slip mats, and a shower chair. A week later, another incident. Accidentally knocked over a lamp in her room at night, tried to clean up the glass, and cut herself. I didn't want to wake you, she sobbed as David bandaged her cut. I know how tired Julia is from work. Another week, she fell out of bed reaching for a glass of water. Maybe I should take some time off, I suggested to David after yet another accident. Stay home with your mom. No way, he shook his head. Your work's important, we'll hire a nurse. David, I don't want strangers in the house, interjected. Julia takes such good care of me, I'll just be more careful. But the accidents continued. Each time looked frailer, more helpless, while I appeared increasingly incapable of caring for her. Julia, maybe we should rearrange Mom's room, David suggested after another fall. Or add more lighting. I knew what was happening, was methodically destroying my reputation. In David's eyes, I was turning from a caring daughter-in-law into, what? Negligent, indifferent. In February, moved to the next phase of her plan. I came home from work to find David in the living room, his face grim, hunched over a document. What's wrong? I asked, taking off my coat. Julia, we need to talk. He didn't look up. Seriously. Something in his tone made me freeze. David, you're scaring me. Sit down, please. I sat next to him on the couch. He was holding a medical report. The doctor came today for Mom's routine checkup. He finally looked at me, and she found something concerning. What exactly? Signs of malnutrition, vitamin deficiency, weight loss. David showed me the papers. Dr. Richardson asked if Mom's been eating regularly. My blood ran cold. David, I cook for her 3 times a day. I always ask what she wants. Mom told the doctor she sometimes forgets to eat because you forget to bring her food. That's not true. I jumped up from the couch. David, you know me. I'd never leave a sick person hungry. But the numbers don't lie. He waved the papers. She's lost 8 kilos in a month. 8 kilos? How was that possible? I was cooking for regularly. Bringing food to her room, collecting empty plates. Empty plates. It hit me, was throwing away the food, starving herself deliberately to frame me for neglect. David, listen to me. I grabbed his hands. Your mother is lying, she's... Julia, he pulled his hands away. How can you say that? She's a sick woman. Exactly. She's sick, but not in the way we thought. What do you mean? I wanted to tell him the truth, that I'd seen Healthy, about her threats, her entire plan. But looking into his eyes, I realized he wouldn't believe me, was right. Her word was gospel to him. Nothing, I said quietly. I'm just trying my best. I know, he hugged me again, but it was a cold embrace. Just be more careful, okay? Mom's going through a tough time. That night I lay awake, was playing a long game, and she was winning. She was turning me into a bad daughter-in-law in David's eyes, using his love and guilt against him. But the worst was yet to come. In March, my greatest fear came true. David was on another business trip. I was working late on a big project and got home around 10 p.m. The house was eerily silent, too silent for a home with a sick woman. I called, heading upstairs. How are you? No answer. Her room was dark. I turned on the light and saw an empty bed. The blanket was thrown back, as if she'd gotten up in a hurry. I started to panic. Where are you? I searched the house. Living room, kitchen, basement, nothing. My heart pounded. What if something had actually happened to her? What if she'd fallen and couldn't get up? I was about to call an ambulance when I heard water running in the downstairs bathroom. Was sitting in a full bathtub, washing her hair. She moved freely, with no signs of weakness. I knocked gently on the door. Are you okay? The sound of water stopped. After a moment, her weak voice replied, Julia, thank God, help me please, I can't get up. I entered the bathroom, was lying in the water playing helpless, but I'd seen her washing her hair. What happened? I asked. I decided to take a bath while you were out, she breathed heavily. Thought I could manage, but when I tried to get up, my legs wouldn't work. I helped her out of the tub and wrapped her in a robe, but inside I was seething. She was performing again. She could gotten up herself but chose to stage another act. I said as I sat her on a chair, enough. Enough what, dear? Enough pretending. I know you're healthy. Gave me a long look. Then she smiled, a predatory smile. Prove it. What? Prove to David I'm pretending. Prove his beloved mommy is a liar and a manipulator. I was silent. We both knew I had no proof. Exactly, stood up from the chair as if she'd never been sick. You can't do anything, and I'm just getting started. What do you mean? So far, I've been playing nice. She walked to the mirror and adjusted her hair. A few bruises, some malnutrition, minor incidents, but David's still on your side, so it's time to get serious. Serious how? Turn to me. What do you think David will do when he hears his wife beat a sick old woman? The world stopped. What? Tomorrow evening, when David gets back from his trip, I'll tell him you hit me. I'll show him the bruises. She rolled up her sleeve, revealing fresh marks on her wrist. Surprised, I'm very resourceful when it comes to protecting my son. You did that to yourself. Of course, a hammer works wonders if you know where to hit, she admired her handiwork. And I have photos and witnesses. What witnesses? My friend happened to stop by this afternoon, right when I flew back from your hit, laughed. She was so shocked, even offered to call the police. I realized I was trapped. Miller's friend of 40 years would believe anything told her. David won't believe you. I tried to sound confident. Oh, he will, because I have something else, pulled out her phone. A voice recorder, a recording of our conversation 10 minutes ago, where you're yelling at a sick woman, threatening her. I hadn't yelled, I hadn't threatened, but I knew could edit any recording to make me look like a monster. Why? I asked desperately. Why do you hate me so much? I don't hate you, shrugged. You're just an obstacle, a rock in the road that needs to be removed. David will be miserable without me. Not for long. I'll find him a good wife. Maybe's daughter, Susan. She's an obedient girl who understands family values. You're sick. No, dear, you're the sick one, stepped closer. Mentally unstable, prone to violence. David will realize that tomorrow. She headed for the door but paused at the threshold. Oh, and don't try to find proof of my health. I've installed cameras in my room. If anyone enters without permission, an alarm goes off, and I can always say I fear for my safety. The door closed. I was left alone in the bathroom, realizing I'd lost. David returned from his trip the next evening. I met him at the airport, trying to act normal, but inside, I was bracing for disaster. How, Mom? He asked as we drove home. Fine, I couldn't manage more. You're acting strange. David looked at me with concern. Did something happen? Just tired, work, been a lot. But he knew me too well. He sensed I was hiding something. At home, greeted us, sitting in a wheelchair, a new prop for her performance. David, my boy. She reached out to him, and I noticed her sleeve was deliberately pulled up, showing the bruises. Mom, what happened to you? David rushed to her. What's with your arm? Nothing, dear, quickly pulled her sleeve down. Just a clumsy fall. How did you fall? Julia, do you know what happened? I was silent. I couldn't bring myself to speak. David, don't, took his hand. I don't want to upset you on your first day back. Mom, tell me now, what happened? Looked at me, and I saw triumph in her eyes. Julia, she began to cry. She hit me, David, last night. I asked for help getting out of the bath, and she got so angry. David turned to me slowly. His eyes held disbelief, shock. Is this true? He whispered. No, I found my voice. David, it's a lie. She made it all up. Want to see the bruises? Sobbed, rolling up her sleeve. The bruises looked horrific. Fresh, painful, exactly like marks from a hard blow. My God, David paled. Julia, how could you? I didn't touch her. David, she did this to herself. What? He looked at me like I was insane. You're saying Mom beat herself up? Yes, she's healthy, David. She's been pretending. I saw her walking, cooking her own food. Julia, enough. He raised his voice. You're accusing a sick woman of faking a stroke. That's exactly what I'm saying. I have a witness, said quietly. Saw she came by right at that moment. David pulled out his phone and dialed. Mrs. Miller, this is David. Yes, I heard. Can you tell me exactly what you saw? He listened for a minute, his face growing darker. Thank you. Yes, we'll handle it. He hung up and looked at me with such pain in his eyes that I wanted to disappear. Says you were yelling at Mom, grabbing her arms. Mom was crying, begging you to stop. It's a lie. David, they're in on it together. Why? He stepped closer. Why would two elderly women conspire against you? I didn't know how to answer. The truth sounded insane even to me. I have something else, said, pulling out her phone. A recording of last night's conversation. She played the audio. My voice sounded sharp, aggressive. Enough pretending. I know you're healthy. Then's voice, weak and scared. Julia, please don't yell at me. I'm a sick woman. And my voice again. Stop lying. I'm sick of you. A sound like a slap. Cry. I listened to the forgery in horror, had cut phrases out of context, added sound effects. It was chillingly convincing. Enough, David stopped the recording. Julia, pack your things. What? I can't live with a woman who hits my mother. Get out of my house. David, please, listen to me. I've heard enough and seen the evidence. He turned away. You have 1 hour. My world was collapsing. 5 years of marriage, our plans, our dreams, reduced to ashes by a psychopath's twisted fantasy. David, I tried to take his hand, but he pulled away. Don't touch me. After what you did to Mom, I don't know you. I looked at. She sat in her chair with a victorious smile. She won. I'm filing for divorce tomorrow, David added, and I'll request a restraining order so you can't come near Mom. I went upstairs and started packing. My hands shook, tears blurred my vision, but I forced myself to keep moving. An hour later, I stood at the door with 2 suitcases. David didn't even look at me. David, I said one last time, someday you'll see the truth and it'll be too late. Leave, he didn't look up. I walked out of the home where I'd lived for 5 years, out of the life I'd built with the man I loved, had won. But the story didn't end there. I rented a small apartment across town. The first weeks were a blur of depression and trying to figure out what to do next. David didn't answer my calls. His lawyer sent divorce papers. Friends tried to support me, but I saw the questions in their eyes. Could quiet Julia really be capable of domestic violence? I thought about every day, her perfect plan, her flawless execution. She studied David and me, knew all our weaknesses. And then it hit me. The smart speaker in the bathroom. David had installed it 6 months ago for his mom. She can play music or call for help with her voice, he'd said. Those devices record conversations to improve their service. That conversation within the bathroom, what if it was recorded? My heart raced. I remembered the password to our shared Amazon account. David never changed passwords. I sat at my computer and logged in. I found the history, the audio recordings. And there it was. A file from that evening. The timestamp matched our conversation in the bathroom. My hands trembled as I hit play. First, the sound of running water, then my voice. "Are you okay?" His voice, strong, confident. "Julia, thank God, help me please, I can't get up." Then our conversation, every word, every confession. "Enough pretending, I know you're healthy." "Prove it." "Prove to David I'm pretending. Prove his beloved mommy is a liar and a manipulator. So far, I've been playing nice, but David's still on your side, so it's time to get serious. Tomorrow evening, when David gets back, I'll tell him you hit me. A hammer works wonders if you know where to hit. My friend happened to stop by this afternoon, right when I flew back from your hit. Every word was crystal clear, every confession, undeniable proof. I downloaded the file, made several copies, saved it to a USB drive, emailed it to myself. Then I called David. "What do you want?" he answered coldly. "David, please meet me. I need to show you something." "I don't have time for your games. It's about your mother, and the truth about what's been happening in our house." "Julia." 1 hour, meet me at the on Main Street, please." Something in my tone made him pause. "Fine, but this is really the last time." David arrived at the looking grim. He hadn't shaved, his eyes red from lack of sleep. "Make it quick," he said, sitting across from me. "Mom's not feeling well after the incident. She needs me." "David," I pulled out my laptop. "Just listen. This is what recorded in the bathroom 3 days ago." "What?" "Remember, you said those devices record conversations. This is my conversation with your mother." I played the file. At first, David listened with confusion. Then his face began to change. "Prove to David I'm pretending. Prove his beloved mommy is a liar and a manipulator." His eyes widened. "So far, I've been playing nice, but David's still on your side, so it's time to get serious." He paled. "Tomorrow evening, I'll tell him you hit me." "This can't be real," he whispered. "A hammer works wonders if you know where to hit." David covered his face with his hands. "My friend happened to stop by this afternoon, right when I flew back from your hit." "My God," he looked up, tears in his eyes. She planned it all." "Every detail," I leaned across the table. "David, your mother's healthy. She's been faking her illness for 6 months to destroy our marriage." "But why?" His voice shook. "Why would she do this?" "She can't let you go. In her mind, you belong to her alone." David listened to the recording to the end. With each of his words, his face grew more shocked. When it finished, he sat in silence for a long time. "Julia," he finally said, "what have I done?" "You believed your mother. That's natural." "No," he slammed his fist on the table. "I believed her over you, my wife, the woman I've lived with for 5 years. David, I nearly destroyed our family because of a psychopath's sick fantasy." He took my hands. "Julia, forgive me, please." I was crying. From relief, from pain, from realizing how close we'd come to disaster. Of course I forgive you, I whispered. The important thing is you know the truth now. What do we do? He asked. She's still pretending to be sick. We go home, and we play her this recording. What if she denies it? Then we go to the police. We have evidence of fraud, slander, and false accusations. David nodded. Let's go. It's time to end this charade. We arrived home that evening. Was in the living room, sitting in her wheelchair, watching TV. When she saw me, she feigned fear. David, why did you bring her here? I told you. Mom, David's voice was calm but steely. We need to talk. Of course, sweetheart, just not with this woman, after what she did. Mom, I know everything. Something in his tone made her tense. What do you know? About your plan, your lies, how you tried to destroy my marriage. Tried to maintain her act. David, I don't understand, this woman hit me. We have a recording of your conversation with Julia. He pulled out his phone. Captured every word. His face changed. The mask began to slip. You spied on your mother's conversation. Listen for yourself. David played the recording. Prove to David I'm pretending. Prove his beloved mommy is a liar and a manipulator. Sat up straight in her chair. No weakness, no mobility issues. A hammer works wonders if you know where to hit. Enough, she said. No, Mom, we're listening to the end. I'll find him a good wife. Maybe's daughter, Susan. She's an obedient girl. Stood up from the chair, effortlessly. So what? She dropped the pretense. You heard the truth, now what? How could you? David looked at her, pain in his eyes. How could you lie like that, destroy my family? I was protecting you, raised her voice, from this woman who stole you from me. Mom, I'm a grown man. I have a right to my own life. You have a mother who sacrificed her entire life for you. No one asked you to sacrifice, David shouted back. No one asked you to control my every move. I gave birth to you, raised you, you're my son. I'm not your property. Glared at us with such hatred that I instinctively stepped back. David, you're choosing her over your own mother. I'm choosing honesty, Mom, and love, not manipulation. You'll regret this, she hissed. All women are the same. She'll leave you and you'll be alone. If that happens, it'll be my choice, not your game. The doorbell rang. David opened it to find 2 police officers. Detective, a middle-aged woman introduced herself. We received a report of domestic violence. May we come in? I looked at David. He nodded. Come in. We have something interesting for you. Detective listened to our story with growing interest. The recording made a strong impression. Cases like this are more common than you'd think, she said. Manipulative parents who can't let go of their adult children, but a recording like this, that's rare. What happens to my mother-in-law? I asked. We'll investigate. False reporting, slander, fraud. The detective looked at, who sat stone-faced on the couch. We'll also need to assess her mental state. And the accusations against my wife. Dropped. We have irrefutable evidence of fabrication. Finally spoke. I want a lawyer. That's your right, the detective nodded. But for now, you're under arrest for suspected false reporting. As they handcuffed, she gave David one last look. You chose her. I hope you're happy. I will be, Mom, despite everything. The door closed. They took away. David and I were left alone in the house that had been a battlefield for 6 months. Julia, he said softly, how can you ever forgive me? I already have, I hugged him. We were both victims of a very clever, cruel woman. But I should believed you. David, she's your mother. You loved her. She used that love against both of us. We stood in each other's arms for a long time, both crying from relief, from pain, from realizing how close we'd come to losing each other. What now? He asked. Now we heal, rebuild trust, learn to live without her poison. What if she comes back? She won't, I looked into his eyes. We have a restraining order, and now we know what she's capable of. The trial was quick. The recording was the key evidence. Experts confirmed its authenticity and declared edited recording a fake. was found guilty of slander, false reporting, and fraud. The sentence, 2 years probation and mandatory psychiatric treatment, plus a restraining order, she couldn't come near us. Miller recanted her testimony, admitting asked her to lie to save her son from a bad woman. David and I went through couples therapy. We had to relearn how to trust each other, rebuild our relationship after the crisis. You know, David said last night as we sat on the couch, I'm grateful for that. Really? It saved our marriage. If you think about it, it told the truth when no one else could. I looked at the smart speaker in the corner. Its blue light blinked peacefully, waiting for commands. I said, thank you. Of course, it didn't respond, but I could sworn the light blinked a little brighter than usual. Last week, a small miracle happened. The doctor confirmed I'm pregnant. After 3 years of trying, we're finally expecting a child. Do you think it's because the stress is gone? David asked, holding the test result. I think it's because we're a family again, I replied. A real family. Without lies, without manipulation, without someone else's poison. Sometimes the truth hides in the most unexpected places. Sometimes salvation comes from a silent witness that simply records what it hears, without judgment or bias. Thought she controlled everything. She crafted a perfect plan, accounted for every detail. But she forgot one small thing. In today's world, someone's always listening. And sometimes, that someone can save not just your marriage, but your entire life. The smart speaker doesn't judge. It doesn't take sides. It doesn't lie for anyone's benefit. It tells the truth.